الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So in our previous class we had begun reading this treatise, which originally it doesn't have a title, and that is because it is a letter. It is a letter that Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he wrote to one of his brothers, giving him advice. For this reason, the people of knowledge, they have entitled this work here, Risalatu Ibn al-Qayyim li ahadi ikhwanihi, yani just based upon the topic and the subject matter, the letter of Ibn al-Qayyim to one of his brothers. And we've seen likewise that brother, his name is Ala ad-Din. And the people of knowledge, they mentioned that there has not been any details clarifying exactly who he is, except for that he was one of the companions of Ibn Qayyim rahimahumullah ta'ala. And he began the letter with great benefit, first and foremost supplicating and calling on Allah and hoping in Allah to respond to his supplication, supplicating for the brother that Allah will do good to him in this life and in the hereafter, and that Allah will make him beneficial and blessed wherever he may be. And he clarified the meaning of being blessed wherever one may be, and that means that a person, he will be someone who is always teaching and directing others to the goodness, and he's somebody who's calling to Allah. So therefore he's teaching others and directing them to the goodness, but he's not doing that so that they follow him. He's not doing that and ordering them with the good so that he will be followed and that the people will take his word and that he will be obeyed, but rather he's calling to Allah. So he's sincere. He's giving advice for the sake of Allah, not to be known or not to be famous. This is what he's making dua for him for, to be like this. Somebody who is blessed wherever he may be, he calls the people to the goodness and he calling them to Allah, and reminding them and admonishing them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and encouraging them to obey Allah. So he said, فَهَذَا مِن بَرَكَةِ الرَّجُلِ. This is the blessing of a man, any of a person in general, and this is his case. Whoever is void of this affair here, this goodness, calling to Allah, beginning with the remembrance of Allah, upon knowledge and insight, and reflecting upon this life and the hereafter, and making preparation for one's hereafter, and not being overcome by this life, whoever is free of this or void of this, then he is likewise void of blessing. And the gatherings that he has with others is likewise stripped from blessing. His gatherings are stripped from blessing. And the people who gather with them, if they're not careful, their lives likewise will be stripped from blessing. So the people of knowledge mentioned that this is the case about companions. Just as diseases, the physical diseases, they're contagious. Some of them are contagious, and this is something that is known, al-adwa. Likewise, the foul diseases of the heart as well, with the lusts and the desires and the preference of this worldly life, and also the doubts and the shubuhats, the diseases that affect the heart from the shahawat and the shubuhat, they're also contagious. If a person gets around people who are affected by them, they will affect him. From the fastest ways for a person to become misguided or misled or to have misunderstanding in the religion or to go astray and follow his whims and desires is to take bad companions, is to be in the wrong company, and they will affect him in a major manner. And the people of knowledge, barakallah fikum, they say as-sahibu sahib. As-sahib sahib. As-sahib sahib. Sahib is a companion with the sad. And the sahib is the one who pulls you from a sahib. He pulls you. So the companion, he pulls you along with him. If he's upon goodness, he's going to pull you to the goodness. He's going to drag you along with him in the khair that he's involved in. But if he's not involved in goodness, he's going to drag you along with him and pull you into that evil. So this is the case. So it's very important to have good companions. So he's making dua for him to be like this, and then warning him of its opposite, and mentioning some traits of the opposite of that, and that he's free, void of that barakah, or his life is stripped of that blessing. Then he is from those people who waste their time. They waste their time talking about this and talking about that, he said and she said, about things that are not important, about things that not concern him, or about things that have lesser importance, neglecting that which takes priority, or even worse than that, about that which is haram, and speaking about affairs that are not allowed, and delving into that which is impermissible. And likewise, this is from the means that corrupt the heart. So he mentioned these two great points here about wasting time and the corruption of the heart, and how they're related, and how if this overcomes a person, he will become heedless. He'll become heedless. And if he wastes his time, wastes his time in that which is not beneficial, or wastes his time in something that is less beneficial, or wastes his time in that which will not bring about any good for him in his hereafter, wastes his time in that which is going to lead him into the haram, or wastes his time in the haram, all of these things right here are means to corrupt the heart. Even if he's involved in the worldly life, something that's allowed and permissible, then he's wasting lots of time. And also, along with this, his heart is weakening. His heart is weakening, and his faith is being neglected, and pretty soon it will become weak. And then he'll become heedless. Even if he's wasting his time, for example, in something that's permissible. If he does it too much, this is going to be a reason for it to lead him to becoming heedless, to lead him to becoming forgetful of the hereafter. And when a person becomes forgetful of the hereafter, he starts to follow his desires. He starts to follow his whims. He starts to follow his lust. He starts to do what he wants to do. He starts to please himself and his soul. And many times, if a person is not careful, his soul will overcome him, and he will start to seek pleasure and enjoy himself in that which is impermissible, and that which is haram, and that which is not allowed. So this is what he was mentioning here with regard to these affairs, and it should not be like that. So he's making dua for him to be full of blessing, and then likewise clarifying the opposite of that, and he so to avoid these affairs, and then also mentioning the issue of taking companions. So he's making dua for him to be blessed, and also telling him what that means, and also clarifying for him the opposite of that, and then also clarifying the importance of having companions who are blessed, and their gatherings are blessed. And that means that they remind them of the goodness. Whenever they're around them, they remind them of the goodness. They do not involve them in things that are frivolous, or in things that are not beneficial, or they're not wasting their time with something lesser. Rather, they're from those people who, whenever they're around them, they benefit from them in their worldly life and in their religion. And then he mentioned this affair about the ghafla, the heedlessness, and likewise the tiba' al-hawa, following desires, and that the heedlessness is from a type of ignorance and foolishness, and that it will cover the heart until he cannot see the truth. So he'll be misguided. So heedlessness will lead a person to misguidance. It will affect his knowledge. He will not be able to identify the truth and verify that and understand it properly, and he'll be lost. On the other hand, following a person's desires, that doesn't necessarily mean he will not have knowledge. Somebody, maybe he has lots of knowledge. Maybe he's somebody who has memorized lots of evidences, but he does not prefer that. He doesn't put that knowledge in front of him and follow behind it. Rather, he puts it behind his back and follows his desires. So therefore, now, because he has shown preference to his whims over the knowledge, then he has become from those who have earned the anger of Allah. So he's mentioning this issue here, referring to the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path, the path of those whom you have bestowed your favors and blessings upon. غير المغضوب عليهم, and not like those who have earned the anger of Allah Azza wa Jal, earned the anger of Allah Azza wa Jal, meaning from those people who follow their desires and show preference to their whims, and they do not implement the knowledge that they have. وَالضَّالِينَ, and not the path of those who have went astray, the people of heedlessness and ignorance, and the people who worship Allah without knowledge and upon falsehood and upon negligence, like the Christians specifically, and anyone who resembles them likewise, even from this ummah, those who are heedless and those who are ignorant and those who are engulfed in misguidance. So the people who are in ghafla, they are the Christians and those who are like them, even from this ummah, and the people who have earned the anger of Allah and they follow their desires, then they are the Jews, and likewise those who resemble them from this ummah. So from this we have that famous narration of Sufyan ibn Uyayna, rahimahullah. He died in the year 198. He said, "Man fasada min ubadina falahu shabahun bin nasara, wa man fasada min ulama'ina falahu shabahun bil yahud." So the one who has become corrupted from our devout worshippers, and from the laymen, and those who are the devout worshippers, they have a resemblance to the Christians. and those who have been corrupted from our people of knowledge and our scholars, then they have a resemblance to the Jews. So this is the case here. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, لَتَتَّبِعُنَّ سَنَنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ شِبْرًا بِشِبْرٍ ذِرَاعًا بِذِرَاع. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said about this ummah that indeed you're going to follow the nations before you, handspan by handspan, and arm's length by arm's length. And you're going to follow them precisely. حتى وإذا دخلوا جحر ضب لدخلتموه. حتى if they go into the hole of a lizard, of a ضب, then you will follow it. And they said, اليهود والنصارى يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he said فمن. So who else then? So meaning that there's going to be people from this ummah that follow them precisely. So those who are ignorant, and those who are heedless, and those who are forgetful, and those who are foolish, and they don't have knowledge to identify the truth from falsehood, and the sunnah from innovation, and tawheed from shirk, then they have a resemblance to the Christians, and they are misguided. They're misguided. Even if they have the foundation of guidance, they don't have the detailed guidance. And meaning they're Muslims, they're upon the Shahada in general, but they have not completed their faith or fulfilled the rights of their faith because of misguidance and because of a weakness in knowledge. So therefore they're heedless of the reality of this life and hereafter. And then there are those likewise who have been corrupted from this ummah, who have knowledge. They have knowledge. They're not ignorant. They have knowledge of Allah and His attributes. They have knowledge of the halal and the haram. They have knowledge of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They have knowledge of the narrations of the Sahaba and the likes like this, but they use them for worldly gain. So therefore they will conceal some of that, and they'll reveal other parts of that in order to benefit their own selves, and they'll sell a portion of that for a miserly worldly price. Meaning they use the religion as a stepping stone to get the dunya. And this is the example of the Jews, and likewise those people of knowledge, or those who ascribe to knowledge from the scholars or the students of knowledge, that manipulate and use their position of leadership and knowledge in the deen to get a worldly gain. So this is the case here. He's talking about these affairs. So this comes from al-ghafla wa ittiba' al-hawa. Al-ghafla wa ittiba' al-hawa. And you understand this? So this is the case. So the first one, al-ghafla, he doesn't have knowledge. And he's also al-jahl. And so therefore maybe some of them they're worshiping Allah Azza wa Jal, but they're worshiping Allah upon ignorance, upon heedlessness, upon negligence, upon innovation, not upon the straight path, not upon guidance, not upon knowledge, not upon certainty, not upon the correct way. The other ones, they follow their desires, ittiba' hawa, meaning they have knowledge, but they don't have application, they don't implement it. So this is referring to the fact to that which Allah has mentioned in the Fatiha, dividing the people in three categories. There are people who have no knowledge, and therefore they go astray. Even if they try to worship Allah, they don't hit the mark and they're wrong, and they're upon innovation or misguidance. So it's not accepted from them, and they're misguided and astray. And other people, they have knowledge, but they don't implement it, and they don't use it as a guide for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. So therefore they have earned the anger of Allah. And then they have the knowledge, but they don't apply it. And then there are the people whom Allah has given success to have knowledge and to implement it and abide by, and they're the ones whom Allah has bestowed His favors and blessings upon. At the head of them, the prophets. And at the head of the prophets, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And after them, the Siddiqun, the truthful. And at the head of them, Abu Bakr, radiyallahu anhu. And then after them, the rest of the companions, beginning with the rest of the Khulafa Arba. And then after them, Shuhada, the martyrs, and at the head of them, Umar ibn Khattabi, and after him, Uthman and Ali and Hamza and the rest of those who had given their life to defend the religion of Islam and establish the kalima La ilaha illallah. And then after them, radiyallahu anhum, the Salihin, the righteous, and from the rest of the followers after them until this day. And this is what Allah He mentioned in His book, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَأُولَئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَئِكَ رَفِيقًا. And whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then they are in the company of those whom we have bestowed our blessings upon, from the prophets and from the truthful and from the martyrs and from the righteous, and such a great companionship this is. So this is the companionship that a person he hopes to have. So even if he only has a few companions in this life, or even if he's alone in this life in certain circumstances, he has no companions with him on the straight path, he'll not be lonely. He'll not be lonely because he is striving to be with an-nabiyyin wa siddiqeen wa shuhada'i wa salihin. So we shouldn't be any deceived. This is the people, these are our companions, these are the ones that we want to be with. We want to be with them. We want to be with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on his path. With Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhuma on their path. It's the same path. It's the same path, and the path of the companions, and the path of the righteous, the path of As-Salafy Salih. So this is what he's referring to now. So he talked about the first two categories, those who went astray, and how they go astray from ghaflah wa ittiba' al-hawa. And he mentioned another point likewise that's even more severe than that. These two affairs can come together. He said rather many times they come together. So many times they come together. So with regards to the Christians and the Jews and those who resemble them, both of them are misguided. And both of them are in the anger of Allah. But the Christians, because of their ignorance, they have a greater portion, a greater share of that. They're more described with this misguidance. Have ignorance and no knowledge, they're more rightful to the trait of misguided. Although the Jews are misguided too. And likewise, the Christians, they share with the Jews in the anger of Allah. But because the Jews, they have knowledge, the lofty knowledge of the legislation, and the deed, and they misuse it, and they abuse that trust, and they don't abide by it, then they have a greater portion. It's more rightful that they're described like this. So both of them are misguided and have the anger of Allah, but one of them is more specific on each side. You understand that? So, and this is the case. So sometimes these traits, they'll come together in one person, waliyadu billah, and similar like that, like al-ghafla wa ittiba' al-hawa. From other terms you can say, also al-jahl وَسُوء الْقَصْدِ Al-jahl وَسُوء الْقَصْدِ. And that a person, he'll be ignorant and then he has a bad intention. He's ignorant and he has a bad intention. And he's ignorant and he's not sincere. He's ignorant and he wants to do harm. He wants to do harm to others in order to benefit himself. So that's the same thing, heedlessness and following desires. So the one who's heedless, he's ignorant. And the one who follows his desires, he has a bad intention. He has a bad intention. His intention is corrupted. And that's why he follows his desires. He doesn't follow the knowledge. He doesn't follow the knowledge. He doesn't want the knowledge. He doesn't want the pleasure of Allah. He doesn't want the home in the hereafter. He wants the reward now. He wants the pleasure now. He wants to be happy now. He wants to get the fast reward. So therefore he sells that great opportunity in the hereafter for the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and the home in the hereafter for the worldly life that is hastened now. So this is all the summarization of that which has preceded. Now he says, وَأَمَّا الْمُنْعَمُ عَلَيْهِمْ فَهُمُ الَّذِينَ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمَعْرِفَةِ الْحَقِّ عِلْمًا وَبِالْانْقِيَادِ إِلَيْهِ وَإِيثَارِهِ عَلَى مَا سِوَاهُ عَمَلًا وَهَؤُلَاءِ هُمُ الَّذِينَ عَلَى السَّبِيلِ النَّجَاةِ وَمَنْ سِوَاهُمْ عَلَى السَّبِيلِ الْهَلَكِ. So he says, as for those whom Allah has bestowed His favors upon them, then they are the ones that Allah has blessed them. He has blessed them and given them the favor of understanding the truth and having knowledge of that. And likewise, He has favored them and bestowed upon them the ability to comply to that and to prefer it over everything else in application. So now he's mentioning the traits of the people whom Allah has bestowed His favors upon. And the first one is that they have knowledge. They have knowledge of the truth. Meaning they have knowledge of Tawheed, and they have knowledge of that which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come with from the legislation and the prescribed law, and the way to abide by in one's life, in one's creed, in one's manner, in one's conduct, in one's dealings, wherever he may be, in public and in private. There's guidance. So they have been guided to this knowledge. And likewise, they have been guided to comply to that knowledge and application and to prefer it. So this is the case. This is what a person, in order to avoid falling into heedlessness and negligence, and in order to avoid falling into ignorance and foolishness, a person, he has to have knowledge. And knowledge, it doesn't come from nothing. It's not free. You have to work for it. It's a favor and a blessing from Allah Azza wa Jal, and it's from the provision that Allah has decreed for a person. But if it's decreed for a person, then likewise it will be decreed for him to take a path to that. So we have to make effort to get knowledge. You have to make effort. You have to sacrifice time. You have to sacrifice money. You have to go through difficulties. You have to make effort. And if you make effort, then abshir bil khair, that Allah Azza wa Jalla, He will facilitate for you. And He will make a way for you, and He will enlighten your heart until you see. Until you see. If you truly want to know the truth in order to apply it, because you believe in Allah in the last day, then you will have much goodness. So first and foremost, you have to have the desire to have knowledge. You have to want to know the truth. You have to want to be upright. You can't be satisfied with where you're at in ignorance and misguidance or following your customs and cultures. You have to want to know, am I doing the right thing? Am I living in a manner that's pleasing to Allah? Is what I'm doing correct? And is how I raise my family the right way? Is this according to what is pleasing to Allah? If I die today, will Allah be pleased with me? Am I on a good path? And like this, just don't follow everything and the customs and the culture of the people and do what everybody else is doing, because most of the people, they're not following the right way. They're not following the right way. So this is the first thing. But then after that, you have to strive to implement the knowledge, to comply to it in application. And then he mentioned the great point here, وَإِثَارِ بِالْإِنْقِيَادِ إِلَيْهِ وَإِثَارِهِ عَلَى مَا سِوَى. And then you have to prefer it over everything else. So once you learn the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now you have to prefer that over your desires. You have to prefer that over the customs of your people. You have to prefer that over the way of your forefathers if they were not upon that way. If your dad and your grandpa or your family before was not upon that way, that knowledge that you have been blessed with to see and to understand, and the insight that you now have is contrary to the way of your forefathers, and you have to show preference to the way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If the people in your masjid, if the people in your village, if the people in your community, they're not upon that way, and now you see that way, and you've been guided to that way, and the light has come on in your eyes, and you see that this is the right way, and my people are upon another way, now you have to prefer that knowledge over that way. Prefer that knowledge over the customs. Prefer that knowledge over what you're used to. Prefer that knowledge over how they do it in your masjid. And the likes like this. And how some people say, oh, that's how they pray in my masjid. Or that's how they pray in my country. Or that's how the women dress in my country. Or that's that's the hijab they wear in my country. Or that's how I grew up. No, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about who's following the sunnah. It's about who's upon the way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's about huda wa hawa. There's only going to be huda or hawa. A person, either he's going to follow the guidance of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or he's going to follow desires. So those who have been blessed with knowledge to see the guidance, now they have to strive against their soul to throw their desires behind their back and throw their customs and cultures to the side and hold fast to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is what Imam Malik he said, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, as-sunnah safinatu nuh. As-sunnah safinatu nuh. That the sunnah is the ship, is like the ship of Nuh. Because-safinatu nuh, it's like the ship of Nuh. Man raqibaha najah. Wa man takhallaf anha halak. Whoever aboards the ship, he'll be safe. He'll be safe. He'll be saved. He will not be drowned in the desires and the whims and the misguidance and the misconceptions and misunderstandings. And the likes like this, and the shubuhat and the shahawat. He will not be drowned in the ghafla, and he will not follow his desires, because he's riding on the sunnah. He'll be high and lofty, floating. Floating high by the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. But whoever turns away from that, he's going to be destroyed. He's going to be destroyed by heedlessness and forgetfulness, and by following desires and whims, in the dark valleys, and the great and vast waves of misguidance. And desires and whims, waliyadu billah. So you have to have the knowledge, it's not enough. You have to apply the knowledge, it's not enough. You have to prefer it. You have to prefer the knowledge and prefer the application of the knowledge. You have to learn what Allah loves, and you have to love Allah and love what Allah loves and prefer the love of Allah. You have to learn what it is the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and love the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and love his way and prefer his way. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then he says, and these people, they're the ones who are on the path of success, the path of savior, the path of safety. And everyone beside them, they're on the path of destruction. And no matter how much money they have, or how many homes they have, or how much status they have, if they're not on the path of the mun'ami alayhim, if they're not on the path of knowledge and application of that knowledge and preference of that knowledge and application, they're on the path of destruction and loss and failure. He says, with هذا أمرنا الله سبحانه أن نقول كل يوم وليلة عدة مرات اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. And because of this, what he is mentioning here, Allah has ordered us, the Most High, to say every day and every night, a number of times, guide us to the straight path. The path of those whom you have bestowed your favors upon, not the path of those who earned your anger, nor of those who have gone astray. nor of those who have gone astray. So then he says, فإن العبد مضطر كل الاضطرار إلى أن يكون عارفا بما ينفعه في معاشه ومآده وأن يكون مؤثرا مريدا لما ينفعه مجتنبا لما يضره. These are very great benefits, wallahi. Very few words, but very beneficial. They're like fundamental points and guidelines on how you have to check yourself and to abide by them in order to be successful. So he says, so the slave, a person, he is in dire need, in dire necessity to have knowledge of that which will benefit him in his worldly life and his hereafter. So you have to have, we're in dire need. We're in dire necessity. The person, he is in dire necessity to be aware and to be upon certain knowledge of that which will benefit him in this worldly life and in the hereafter. And in the hereafter. Some people, if they don't know what will benefit them, for example, a child, he doesn't know what's beneficial for him. So you'll find him, maybe he'll take some poison if he's not careful and put it in his mouth and eat it. He'll find something that's harmful and dangerous and pick it up and play with it. And he like this, and this is because he doesn't know. He doesn't know what will benefit him. He doesn't know what will harm him. Likewise, people who do not have knowledge and understanding in fiqh and the deen, maybe they will go to websites and they'll start playing with things and getting involved in things that will harm them. That will harm them, will harm their religion, will harm their deen, will harm their heart, or even purchase things and bring it into their home and harm their own family. They don't know what's beneficial for them and what will harm them, and therefore they wind up harming themselves. That's why some of the people are not, as they say, عدو عاقل خير من صديق جاهل. عدو عاقل خير من صديق جاهل. An intelligent enemy is better than an ignorant friend. Because an intelligent enemy, he's going to move upon his intelligence. And you know how to deal with him. Right. As for the ignorant friend, he's going to try to help you and he's going to harm you. He's ignorant. He's your friend. All he wants to do is help you, but he can't help but harm you. He wants to help you and he'll think he's doing something good, but then in the end he's harming you because he has no knowledge. He's ignorant. He's ignorant. So he thinks he's doing good, but in reality he's not doing good. He's making things worse. He's making things worse because of the ignorance. So even if he wants to do good, he can't achieve it. How many times people want to do good, but they don't achieve it because of ignorance. Because of ignorance. So the point is, he's saying now that a person, he is in dire need, in dire necessity, meaning at all times, to have knowledge of that which will benefit him in this life and the hereafter. And likewise, he's in dire necessity as well to prefer that and to want to have that which will benefit him. And some people, they don't prefer it. They have the knowledge, but they don't prefer it. They prefer their customs, they prefer their ways, they prefer their desires, so they follow their whims and they go astray. Other people, they don't want it. They don't even want it. They know they hear the khutbah, for example, a great admonishment and advice about the hereafter and their preparation, or the warning from innovation, time after time after time. They don't want it. MashaAllah, the khutbah, they listen, they understand, it's nice, and then they stand up and they forget all about that and they want the dunya and they go get it. And they go get it. Wallahi, I remember last year I gave a khutbah here about guarding the tongue and about protecting the fast, and then I came outside the door right there. I came outside the door and there are people in the parking lot. Kelb, Hamar. It was like that fast. He forgot. He's calling people names in the street right there behind the masjid. I said, Subhanallah. I looked at the weather. I was like, did he not just hear the khutbah? He missed the whole thing. Yeah. And maybe he came late. Real late, right? Allahumma stand, but some people, they like that. They like that. So you have to want to be guided. You have to want to go straight. You have to have the desire to be good. You have to want to follow Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have to want to go to Jannah. You can't be false hopes. Likewise, you have to have strong desire. You have to have determination. It has to be in your mind. You have to think about these things. You can't just be heedless, wandering around through life like animals in the life. He says also, he's in the great need, مُجْتَنِبًا لِمَا يَضُرُّهُ, and to stay away from that which will harm him. So the benefit he's telling us now, that a person, he has to have knowledge of that which will benefit him. He has to prefer doing things and desire and want things that will benefit him. And he also has to avoid and stay away from that which will harm him. He also has to avoid and stay away from that which will harm him. He says, so بِمَجْمُوعِ هَذَيْنِ يَكُونُ قَدْ هُدِيَ إِلَى الصِّرَاطِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. So by gathering these affairs here, and now he has been guided to the straight path. فإن فاته معرفة ذلك سلك سبيل الضالين وإن فاته قصده واتباعه سلك سبيل المغضوب عليهم. So if a person, he were to miss out on the knowledge of that, and the knowledge of this affair, the knowledge of that which will benefit him in this life and the hereafter, and the knowledge of that which will harm him. Likewise, if he missed out on this, then he will be upon the path of those who have gone astray. And if he did not intend that, meaning he knows it, but he did not intend that, he did not want that, he did not direct himself on that path and follow it, then now he'll be upon the path of those who are in the anger of Allah. He said, وَبِهَذَا يُعْرَفُ قَدْرُ هَذَا الدُّعَاء الْعَظِيمِ وبهذا يعرف قدر هذا الدعاء العظيم وشدة الحاجة إليه وتوقف سعادة الدنيا والآخرة عليه. So now you see the great value, you see the great status of this great supplication and the great need, and how all happiness in this life and hereafter is based upon that. What dua is it? اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. So he's saying, now if you understand this affair here, now you see how great this supplication is. This is something major. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. And he's saying that you're in great need of this likewise. The human being is in great need of this. So this is from the mercy of Allah. This is from the kindness of Allah, that He revealed this and that He made it obligatory, and that our prayers are not accepted except by making this dua. So it's in our best interest to ask Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that all happiness and goodness is based upon this, being guided to the straight path, in this life and the hereafter. In this life and in the hereafter. Some of the people of Allah, as they mentioned, and Allah knows best, that there's no supplication that is greater than the supplication or more obligatory. And do you know any supplication that's an obligation for you to say? A dua, obligatory dua. If you don't say it, you're sinning. Besides this one, besides this, that's it. This dua here is an obligation. It's an obligation. This dua here is an obligation. You have to learn this dua. You have to say it. If you're mukallaf, now you have to say it 17 times a day, bare minimum. And 17 times a day, bare minimum. And the best place to supplicate is in the prayer, in the obligatory prayer. And the best place to ponder over the Quran and to reflect upon these affairs is in the obligatory prayer. So there's no other supplication, and Allah knows best, that's an obligation for the people to learn and to say daily. It's recommended, many supplications that are recommended, that's highly beneficial, that's very good. But obligation, this is the one that's an obligation. This is the one that's an obligation because of its importance and because of how beneficial it is. Of how beneficial it is. It has come in some of the books of Shaykh Muhammad Ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah, that he mentioned that it's incumbent to remind the layman that this is dua. It's incumbent to remind the layman that this is dua. And that we're not just in the Fatiha is dua. The whole Fatiha is coming up to this. You know, the whole Fatiha, you begin, how does it begin? By mentioning the beautiful names of Allah Azza wa Jalla, praising Him and glorifying Him, and mentioning His attributes, mentioning the attributes of Al-Ilahiyyah, of divinity, Allah, and mentioning the attributes of Rububiyyah, of His Lordship, and His authority and command over the creation, mentioning His attributes of kindness and of mercy and of ihsan, which Ibn Qayyim, he mentioned, rahimahullah, all of the names and attributes revolve around these affairs. These are the fundamentals. The attributes of uluhiyyah, the attributes of rububiyyah, and the attributes of al-ihsan wa rahman. All of the beautiful names and attributes of Allah, they revolve around these principles here, which are found in the beginning of the Fatiha. And the person, he mentions them, yani drawing close to Allah, praising Allah, thanking Allah, mentioning His beautiful names and attributes, mentioning the meeting of Allah, and that Allah is the master of the Day of Judgment and Resurrection, that there's accountability, and confessing that He's a slave, and that he worships Allah alone, and he cannot do that except with the help and aid of Allah. And then he gets to what he wants. What is he saying? Well, what is all this for? Ihdina sirata mustaqim. To make this dua. To make this dua here. After that is just clarification of who they are. So you have to know who you want to be and the path that you want to be on. You have to know who you do not want to be like, and the path of the people you do not want to be on. I'm not a Christian. I don't want to be on their path. The path of the Christian leads to the hellfire. I'm not a Jew. I don't want to be on their path. I want to be on the path. فَاتَّبِعْ مِلَّةِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ حَنِيفًا. You want to be on the path of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, on the path of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, on the path of the prophets and messengers, and the best of them is our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So you have to know these affairs. So you have to know that way, and you have to prefer it, and you have to prefer it, and you have to know the other ways also, because they're harmful. You have to avoid them and stay away from it. You have to avoid them and stay away from it. So he says, وَالْعَبْدُ مُفْتَقِرٌ إِلَى الْهِدَايَةِ فِي كُلِّ لَحْظَةٍ وَنَفَسٍ وفي جميع ما يأتيه ويذره فإنه بين أمور لا ينفك عنها. And the slave, a person, he's in need of guidance in every moment, in every breath. A person, he's in need of guidance in every moment, in every breath, and everything that he does and everything that he leaves. And everything that he does and everything that he leaves. He's in need of guidance. And he's only going to be going between these affairs here. Now he's going to mention any points of this. Because somebody may say, we're guided, we're Muslims, alhamdulillah, why we have to ask for guidance all the time? Huh? Are we not guided? Are we not Muslims? Did we not accept the shahada? So why we got to keep asking for guidance? Somebody might say this. We say it 17, we just said it earlier. Alhamdulillah, Allah guided us. So why are we going to keep asking for guidance? This idea might come, huh? And some people of misguidance, they might fall into this. Even if they don't say that, they say, why you keep talking about Tawheed? And you'll find them, they're the people who violate the Tawheed in the greatest manner. وَلِيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ, and the rights of Tawheed, and even they call to the violation of Tawheed, and then in the end they say, why you keep talking about Tawheed? You guys are Wahhabiyah. You guys are Wahhabi. What's wrong with you? Tawheed. We're all Muslims. La ilaha illallah. The same type of idea. The same type of idea. So he's clarifying here why it's incumbent to ask for guidance so many times in one day, rather every day, because you're in need of guidance in every second of your life, and every breath of your life, and everything that you do and everything that you lead. You have to have guidance. And if a person did something without guidance, he would not do anything except for harm himself and go astray and start following his desires. So he says, and these are the affairs that a person, he's not going to be free from. These are the situation of the human being. He's going to be like this. أحدها أمور قد أتاها على غير وجه الهداية جهلا فهو محتاج إلى أن يطلب الهداية إلى الحق فيها. So there are affairs. The first of them, or one of them, is that there are things that a person has done without guidance, ignorantly. He has performed things, he has done things in his life, said or acted in manners without guidance. He did that in ignorance, so therefore he's in need to seek guidance to the truth with regards to these affairs. For example, how to pray. Some people, they never even sought the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam how to pray. So they pray every single day and it's wrong. Their prayer is deficient, their prayer is weak. Their prayer is deficient, their prayer is weak. They're not moving in the right manner. They're not saying the right things. They're not doing the right things. Or in their money, or in their finances, or in their family and their management or of their household. All of these affairs, maybe he did something not upon guidance. He's following his desires. He's doing what he thinks, or how the people do it in his country or his land or in his city. So therefore he's in need to seek guidance to the truth and the likes of these affairs. أو يكون عارفا بالهداية فيها فأتاها على غير وجهها عمدا فهو محتاج إلى التوبة منها. Or maybe he knows the guidance of these particular affairs, but he did not apply that guidance intentionally. He knows it's not right, he knows it's not proper, but he didn't do it on purpose. So therefore he's in need to be guided to repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. So he's in need to be guided to repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. أو أمورا لم يعرف وجه الهداية فيها علما ولا عملا ففاتته الهداية إلى علمها ومعرفتها وإلى قصدها وإرادتها وعملها. Or there are other affairs that he did not have any knowledge of whatsoever. He did not know the guidance with regards to them, not in knowledge and not in application. He's not aware of them. He's ignorant of them entirely, of the reality of that affair, and from the aspect of knowledge. And he's also ignorant of how to apply it. He's completely ignorant of that. So he missed the guidance. He missed the guidance of this issue in knowledge and in application. So he was not even aware of it, nor was he able to intend it or hope for it. So therefore he's in need of guidance to that knowledge, and then guidance to choose and to prefer that and apply that knowledge. He says, أو أمور قد هدي إليها من وجه دون وجه فهو محتاج إلى تمام الهداية فيها. Or there are other affairs that he's been guided to, yani from one aspect and not from another. That's like the salah, Sometimes a Muslim, he's guided to the salah in general, but he's not guided to the details of how to perform it properly. Or he's guided to the shahada and la ilaha illallah, but he's not guided to the details of actualizing and fulfilling its rights properly. He's guided to al-iman, but he's not guided to the details of that, so therefore he does not establish the rights of his faith yani truthfully. He has deficiency. So there are affairs a person he's guided to from one aspect, and there are other aspects of that same issue he's not guided to. And he's not fulfilling it properly. He's not performing it properly. He's not upright on that path properly. So therefore he's in need of the complete guidance with regards to that. The complete guidance with regards to that. He says, أو أمور قد هدي إلى أصلها دون تفاصيلها فهو محتاج إلى هداية التفسير. Or the affairs that he's been guided to the fundamentals with regards to, but he has not been guided to the details of that. It's similar to the one that has preceded. There's affairs a person maybe he's guided to general realities of the religion or issues in the deen or even in the worldly life, but he's not been guided to the details of that. So therefore he's in need to be guided to those details. He's in need to be guided to those details. He says أو طريق قد هدي إليها وهو محتاج إلى هداية أخرى فيها فالهداية إلى طريق شيء والهداية في نفس طريق شيء آخر. He says ألا ترى أن الرجل يعرف أن طريق البلد الفلاني هو طريق كذا وكذا ولكن لا يحسن أن يسلكه فإن سلوكه يحتاج إلى هداية خاصة في نفس السلوك كالسير في وقت كذا دون وقت كذا وأخذ الماء في مفازة كذا مقدار كذا والنزول في موضع كذا دون كذا فهذه هداية في نفس السير قد يهملها من هو عارف بأن الطريقة هي هذه فيهلك وينقطع عن المقصود. So he says also maybe there's a path he's been guided to, but he's in need of another type of guidance on that path. There's a path that he's been guided to, but he's in need of guidance on the path. There's a path he's been guided to, but now that he made it to the path, now he's in need of another type of guidance while he's on the path. So he says, so guidance to the path is one thing, and guidance on the path is another thing. And this is kind of like a summary of those that have preceded.
Yeah.
And he's guided to the path in general, but the details of the path and how to traverse upon the path, how to stay on the path, how to avoid slipping and tripping on the path, how to avoid being tricked and taken away from the path, how to make sure it's the right path. And some people, they think they're on the good path, it's the wrong path. So they've been guided to the path, but you got to stay on the path. And you got to traverse on the path. And you got to be upright on the path. You can't be lazy on the path, halfway on the path, and he's sometime on the path, hopping off on the path, like this. No, you have to have guidance. After you have guidance to the path, detailed guidance on the path. So it says, so guidance to the path is one thing, and guidance upon that path is something else. Do you not see a person, he knows, for example, a traveler, he knows that the path to to such and such land is this path, but at the same, and he knows the way to the destination. He knows the path that leads to the city he wants to go to, but he does not know how. He does not know how to traverse that path properly, because to go down that path it requires a specific type of guidance, and upon that specific path, like you have to know what time to leave, and that you leave out on this time and not on that time. And maybe if you leave out, for example, on a path to certain cities, it's going to be very busy at certain times. It's going to be lots of traffic. It's going to be more dangerous than other times. If you leave out in the morning time, maybe it's going to catch traffic. Maybe it's going to be a problem like this. So you have to know about the roadways. You have to know about the paths. So what time you're going to leave, what time you're not going to leave, for example. Or if you need to take water with you. Or for example, sometimes maybe you'll be on a particular path, and that path is one long stretch, and there's only one gas station in the beginning and in the end. And if you're not aware of that, you might get stuck. There's a path like that from Mecca to Jeddah. If you're not careful, you think that you're going to make it, but there's actually the gas station is far away. It's happened to me more than one time on accident. And so that's the case. Maybe if you don't know, you think, oh, I'll just get gas at the next one. I got enough to get to the next gas station. Well, if you don't know, maybe the next gas station is not for like another 100 miles. For you look at your tank, oh, I got 60 miles left. I'll get gas at the next one. Keep going. And then it says, next thing you know, after like 30 miles, the next gas station, 125 miles. You're like, oh no, what are you going to do? Huh? You have to check it out. Now you might have to turn around and go back. Right. So now you wasted time. If you don't get stuck in the path. Right? And then if somebody gets stuck in the path, now you are exposed to all different types of harms, all different types of dangers, all different types of problems. If at very minimum you're going to be delayed and wasting time. So he's saying now, like also you have to know where you can stop at. Because this is very clear. And maybe sometimes a person is traveling. If he stops in the wrong neighborhood, it might be a violent place. It might be a bad place. So he might stop at the wrong place and get gas at the wrong place. And you might think that it's all good. Like for example, down here on what's it called, on Harrison, huh? You don't get gas on Harrison or Eden. Huh? No. That's what I moved on the other side of town. That's what the brother told me. He said, "Don't get gas at this." I already went there before, and we went there before. And Abdurrahman, he told me, he's like, man, they got drugs in there. I was like, okay, let's just get our stuff. Let's go. And then after that, the brother told me, he came behind me. He said, "Don't ever get gas there." He said, "I was there before, and they got robbed while I was in there." And ever since then, I've drove past there before, and I've seen it taped off a number of times. There's always shootings there. There's always like, The point is, I don't know these things. If you don't know these things, you might find yourself in danger. So you got to know where to stop, know where not to stop. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're traveling. So this is the example. A person he's traveling this life on the straight path, on his path to Allah Azza wa Jalla. If you get off on the wrong stop, and you might endanger yourself, or worse than that, endanger yourself and your family. And your family. So he says, so now he's in need of guidance, and on the path, while he's traversing. Now he needs guidance on the path, that he might neglect. The person who knows, if he neglected that, then he will be destroyed and he'll be cut off and he'll not reach his destination. He said, وَكَذَلِكَ أَيْضًا تَمَّ أُمُورٌ هُوَ مُحْتَاجٌ إِلَىٰ أَنْ يَحْصُلَ لَهُ فِيهَا من الهداية في المستقبل مثل ما حصل له في الماضي. And also there are affairs that he's in need to complete. Affairs that he has already performed. And there are issues that he's already performed and that has occurred for him, and he's in need of guidance in the future to be upon them in the proper manner like he was before. And to be consistent, and maybe he was guided to perform the right things, to make the right decisions previously, but now also he's in need to be guided in the future to continue making the proper decision and to do the right thing. And he was given success before, and he has to be guided in the future as well to continue making those right decisions and completing those things properly. So he says, وَأَمُورٌ هُوَ خَالٍ عَنِ اعْتِقَادِ حَقٍ أَوْ بَاطِلٍ فيها فهو محتاج إلى هداية الصواب فيها. And there are affairs that he does not have. He does not have the right understanding of the truth or the falsehood, and with regards to them. So therefore, he's in need to be guided to that which is correct, and he does not know whether it's true or falsehood. Maybe he's unclear or uncertain about certain issues. He doesn't know if it's right or if it's wrong, if it's good or if it's bad. Should he go? Should he stop? So he's in need of guidance in this affair to know which one is right and correct. He says, وَأَمُورٌ يَتَقِدُ أَنَّهَا فِيهَا عَلَى هُدَى وَهُوَ عَلَى الضَّلَالَةِ وَلَا يَشْعُرُ فَهُوَ مُحْتَاجٌ إِلَى انْتِقَالِهِ عَنْ ذَلِكَ الْاعْتِقَادِ بِهِدَايَةٍ مِنَ اللَّهِ. There are other affairs that a person, he thinks that he's upon guidance, but in reality he's upon misguidance. He thinks that he's, with regards to these affairs, he's upon the right path, he's upon the good way, he's upon guidance, but in reality he's upon misguidance, and he does not even know. He does not even realize. He doesn't even realize. He doesn't even understand. He says, so therefore he's in need to transfer, to move. He's in need to move from that false creed to guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the guidance of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So maybe he's believing something or doing something he believes is right, but it's wrong, he doesn't even know. So he's in need of Allah to guide him away from that, to that which is right and good. وأمور قد فعلها على وجه الهداية وهو محتاج إلى أن يهدي غيره إليها ويرشده وينصحه فإهماله ذلك يفوت عليه من الهداية بحسبه. It says, and also there are other affairs that he has himself performed them upon guidance, but he's in need now to guide others to it and direct them likewise and advise them as well. So one thing, a person he's upon guidance, and then another thing to be able to help others be upon guidance too. Sometimes maybe a person he's upon guidance, but then if he tries to help somebody else, he's not able to clarify properly. He's not good at helping others or directing others or advising others. So therefore, although he himself is upon guidance and he has performed the affairs properly, now he's in need likewise to be able to guide others and to help others. So if he were to neglect that, then he will miss out on guidance. If he were to neglect helping others and guiding others, and he will miss out on more guidance accordingly. He will miss out on more guidance accordingly. He says, كما أن هدايته للغير وتعليمه ونصحه يفتح له باب الهداية. He said this is because guiding him, just as the fact that a person he will try to help and guide others and to teach others and to advise others, this is a means to open up the gateway of guidance for al-jaza min jins al-amal. So if a person he spends his time helping others and directing others and advising others and being a means to guide others, then this is a means for Allah Azza wa Jal to guide him. To guide him. And so a person, if he helps guide others, then Allah will guide him.
Right.
So if a person he does good to somebody else, Allah does good to him. So if he does good by teaching others, then Allah will teach him. And if he does good by advising others, then Allah will direct him and grant him success. So therefore, even if he himself now he's upon guidance, alhamdulillah, but if he did not advance upon helping others and guiding others, he'll miss out on even more guidance.
Yeah.
So therefore, he's still in need of guidance. Now he's in need of guidance to be guided, to for example, to not be a coward, to not be afraid, to tell somebody that's wrong, your prayer was not good, to advise. Sometimes we see people, and we know they did something wrong, and then shaitan tell us something and make us scared to say something to him, for example. To say, so now you need guidance to stand up, to go to him, and be guidance to say it in the good way, with the good intention. Akhi barakallah feek, that actually is not good. And to direct him and to guide him, and to advise him, and the likes like this. So therefore, a person he's in need of guidance again. He's in need of guidance again. So he says now, rahimahullah, فَإِنَّ الْجَزَاءَ مِنْ جِنْسِ الْعَمَلِ, because the recompense is according to the type of action. فَكَمَا هَدَى غَيْرَهُ وَعَلَّمَهُ هَدَاهُ اللَّهُ وَعَلَّمَهُ. So just as he guided others and he taught others, then Allah will guide him and teach him. فَيَسِيرُ هَادِيًا مَهْدِيًا. So at this time now he will become from those who are guided, who are themselves are guiding others, and they are upon guidance themselves. And this is the peak of humanity, the peak, the best level, the completion of the human being is that he will be guided himself, and that he will be a means to help others become guided. And this was the role of the prophets and messengers, alayhimu salatu wassalam. He says, كما في دعاء النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الذي رواه الترمذي وغيره اللهم زينا بزينة الإيمان وجعلنا هداة مهتدين غير ضالين ولا مضلين سلما لأوليائك حربا لأعدائك نحب بحبك من أحبك ونعادي بعداوتك من خالفك نحب بحبك من أحبك ونعادي بعداوتك من خالفك. He said, just as in the supplication of the Prophet ﷺ, which is narrated by Tirmidhi and other than him, O Allah, adorn us with the adornment of faith, and make us from those who guide and are guided, not from those who are astray, nor leading others astray, those who have an allegiance to those who are your allies, and those who have enmity for those who are your enemies, and we love by your love those who love you, and we have enmity with your enmity for those who oppose you. So this narration, the people of knowledge, as I mentioned, is weak. But the shahid from the author, rahimahullah, has come in the hadith of Ammar ibn Yasir. in the end of the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from his supplication, Allahumma zayyinna bi zinatil iman wa ja'alna hudatan muhtadin. So that portion right there, which is the shahid for the author, has been affirmed authentically on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other narrations. But as for this whole narration, it's not authentic, although the meanings, Allah knows best, are correct. The shahid is, oh Allah, adorn us with the adornment of faith, and He decorate us, beautify us with the adornment of faith, and make us from those who are hudat, yani those who guide others, muhtadin, those who are guided in themselves, those who are upon guidance, and those who guide others, We stop here, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakallahu khairan. Well, anytime somebody has to go, it's okay. I know everybody has things to do in the morning, so if you ever need to leave, alhamdulillah, it's all good. Jazakumullah khairan. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. I was going to mention, barakallahu feekum, this class will continue Saturday through Thursday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Inshallah, we complete the book in Ramadan. Barakallahu feekum.